I'm kind of proud of Tennessee in this case. And you know what? If you're Nico, this is totally within his rights. Now, again, I have heard that it wasn't just about money. Now, that's the story that's going to be pushed, and largely it's going to be the story that lands because Nico himself is just a one-man band in this story, whereas the entire apparatus of Tennessee, the entire apparatus of what they do from a communication standpoint, from a fan standpoint, is going to be against this one individual, where now he doesn't even have a team, at least at the time that I'm taping this, and this is Sunday night after the Masters. So this is going to land, and it's going to be a story that is driven by this narrative that Nico was greedy, he wanted more money. Tennessee is the heroes in the story, and they said no, and we're just going to go from here. When in actuality, like, one, this is totally within Nico's rights because there are no rules. And he held his ground as well, which tells you that it's not just about money, that there's more at play. Now, if we just move on from here, what does this tell you about the entire situation that we're in? Okay, and this doesn't even really have to do with specifically Tennessee or specifically Nico Iamaleava. We are in a situation where there's a complete void in terms of the enforcement of rules, okay? Largely because the NCAA is completely inept, and egregiously absurd in terms of the brutal nature with which they've governed our sport. They have totally failed. They buried their heads in the sand and wanted to retain a model that was archaic until it was essentially litigated against them and then handed down from the bench that they change. And so the courts totally neutered the NCAA from their ability to go and enforce rules that were on the books about boosters and pay for play and all sorts of different things. So now all of a sudden you have to do NIL because you're forced to do it. You've got to allow for free movement in the transfer portal because you're forced to do it from the bench because of the litigious nature of what happened throughout, really the back end of 2010, 11, and further. And they just lost every one of these cases. And now you end up in a void. It just so happens that, and this is the interesting part in this specific case, is that Tennessee created this void because the NCAA tried to enforce some rules on Tennessee, some perceived infractions surrounding actually Nico Iamaleava, his recruitment and his NIL package, and others. And Tennessee said, "Hey, pound sand, you can't enforce these rules at all. Absolutely not. You have no jurisdiction. We're going to sue you. We're going to fight this." And the NCAA, because again, they've been totally neutered by the courts, threw up their hands and sent a memo, to the entire membership, all the institutions out there, and basically said, "Hey, we're no longer going to enforce anything related to NIL." So Tennessee's pushback against the NCAA created the void that now is being exploited in this specific situation, which I do find a little bit interesting. They kind of had a hand in where we're at and now where they are at. Okay. Players want their value and they want to wield the leverage in order to maximize that value and then ultimately get it on the market via the transfer portal, whether it's the winter transfer portal or the spring transfer portal. And here's what I would tell players is that, yes, you want leverage, but they want the leverage all the time with no cost. And you've got to be careful what you wish for if you're a player and you're just fighting this fight, because the pendulum has swung so far back to the players that we have to understand that there will be a reaction and it will swing back towards the schools at some point. And you know what? Maybe this is an inflection point of that, because again, it does seem or feel there is a narrative that this is the first time that a school is kind of pushing back towards the quote greedy player, and now all of a sudden the free market is working this out, and programs are going to finally say no. But what the players should actually be more leery of is not a no, but If a player can go out there and say, I've outperformed my value, then they should be at least aware, and they should be very leery of a situation where a program can say you have underperformed your value and your services are no longer needed. I don't want to get into a situation like that, and the players don't either. But the more you try to retain that end of the pendulum, where you have all of this leverage and you try to exercise all of this leverage, you have to understand that you're exercising that leverage, and at some point there will be a cost to that, and there will be a swing back of that. So that's what the players, I think, are going to have to at least be cognizant of here in the coming months and years as we get more into this situation where we're going to have revenue sharing. I do also believe, just a quick aside, that this transfer portal window is going to be more wild than maybe the future ones, because revenue sharing is coming this summer. And right now, this seems like a moment in time in which these players are like, hey, this is my one last chance to get some ridiculous deal that's outside of what can be considered a more structured revenue sharing deal through the school. Okay. So there's this idea that the programs are taking back the power. The pendulum might be swinging back towards the school and the program rather than where it's been sitting over the last couple of years, which is clearly in the player's side. Truth be told, we've seen this time and time again. We've seen this actually for years, and it didn't have NIL attached to it, and it didn't have transfer portal attached to it. We've seen coaches wield this leverage over their programs and their fan bases for years. This emotional leverage that they have, that they use when a prominent opening occurs throughout the country. And coaches have used this, man. They have used this, and they have generated millions and millions and millions of dollars because of it. If you go back to where coaching salaries were just 10, 20 years ago, and what's happened to those coaching salaries, here's what you'll start to learn, is that the agents in this business started to understand that athletic directors were going to make emotional decisions. So all those agents needed was one prominent opening out there. So LSU comes open, or you name the school, Michigan comes open, or whomever the opening is at, USC or any of these schools. And then every agent would run his client to their AD and say, you know, that school really wants your coach. You should pay him a lot more money. You should pay him a lot more money. So coaches have been doing this for years. And if I'm saying good on Tennessee for saying no and holding the line, here's what I would tell you. I've been begging programs and athletic directors for years to tell a coach no. I mean, I'll bring up some specifics. The risk of alienating individuals. When Jimbo Fisher holds Texas A&M over the coals because LSU is open, to the tune of, what was it, $90+ million, that's ridiculous. Like, at some point, someone needed to say, no, go ahead. Go ahead. You know, this happened with Mel Tucker at Michigan State. And listen, there's countless other guys. And you got to give credit to Tennessee in this case, because they at least held the line. I've been asking teams or I should say programs and athletic departments and athletic directors, I've been begging, hold the line. Tell a coach pound sand. Go ahead. Go negotiate. Go try to get a better deal. But the emotional nature with which ADs approach those decisions made them captive to their coaches. And because of that, coaches made millions and millions and millions of dollars. And now that players are doing it, I don't want to hear any of your crocodile tears from a coaching perspective. I mean, Josh Heupel has coached everywhere. So don't tell me it's just about Tennessee. It's like, bro, you played at Oklahoma and you've coached at 18 different places. Okay, so it is what it is. And let's just call a spade a spade. Loyalty is not what it used to be, which is fine to a point, as long as we're not creating this false narrative that one side is always loyal and another side always isn't, because that's not the case. That's just not the case. What is the case is that the formation and the construction of these athletic departments is going to have to start to change. Thank you for watching the Joel Klatt Show YouTube channel. And if you liked this clip, make sure to like it and subscribe to the channel, and you can stay up to date on all of my college football coverage.